Hello, good evening and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 144. Tonight we're going to give you a brief match summary and analysis of Wolves' 3-0 defeat at Stamford Bridge. Talk about the new boss, Rod Edwards. Once again, we're going to talk about Mr. Shi, take some of your questions and look forward to our break, but our game next in 2 weeks' time against Crystal Palace. Delighted as always to have our club captain, Nocky, hopefully be on fire form again this evening, and delighted to welcome back, I think for your fourth cap for the Wolves Report, journalist, presenter, host and sports commentator, Jackie Oatley. Hope you're both well. Thank you so much for joining me. Unfortunately, we've got to talk about Wolves. So, Jackie, your take on Chelsea 3, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
Yeah, I think the first half, they looked together as a unit. They worked really hard. The focus clearly on stopping Chelsea. They have so much attacking talent. Chelsea weren't great in that first half. And I think Wolves deserve credit for that. They really did work well as a unit, marshalled really well by Ladislav Krejci, who has been a fantastic signing, a really good addition. And I noticed I was there at Stamford Bridge in the away end. And I noticed at half time that the likes of Andre, the likes of Joao Gomez, Krejci, etc., all patting each other on the back, like really tight, really encouraging each other as if, okay, lads, we're halfway there. And I think it was a strong defensive first half performance. But when they got to the final third, they looked terrified. They were like rabbits in headlights and mentally were too scared to do anything. But secondly, bodies in the box, where were they? It's almost like they've forgotten to score a goal, or they're too scared of going forwards because they'd worked so hard, according to James Collins, on being defensively solid, that Hwang, for example, well, bless him, really, really struggling. But there was just no ideas going forwards. And then the second half, they had that 3-minute spell. I counted them, 3-minute spell, where they had like a couple of chances and we're like, whoa, where did that come from? Some 1-2s, and they looked like an actual football team, like they could compete at this level going forwards. And then that dissipated, and then defensive lapses, and the rest is history. That felt a lot more familiar to last weekend. But to summarise, I think it was a lot better than the Fulham game. Anything was. They were together as a unit, terrified of attacking, no ideas when attacking. And Jurgen Strand-Larsen, he looks like a body double of the bloke that was there before, but the head and the talent has gone somewhere else. I don't know where it's gone, and that's a major issue for Rob Edwards to sort out.
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. Coming into that game, Nocky, we all thought we were on to a hiding to absolutely nothing. I didn't mind the first half. I kind of expected it 5-3-2. Stuck in, as Jackie said, Krejci well organised. It was great to have the Brazilians. I thought there was a bit of tenacity. I mean, I thought they were all absolutely petrified, Nocky, but it's all well and good doing that for a half. But you could see when Chelsea turned the screw in the second half, it looked to me like Wolves needed to make changes because Strand-Larsen and Hwang completely anonymous.
Yeah, but I think it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we were set up in a certain way to play where we didn't want to concede a goal. We weren't set up to go and try and win the game. We were very defensive. We were trying to be solid, and I think we did a relatively good job of that. We didn't give too much away, although it was shots in, but measured shots from a bit of a distance. We were controlling that area. But when you're playing a system like that, as soon as you concede a goal, you're going to struggle because there's no real way back in when you're playing as defensively as we were. And we didn't sort of have we didn't have the capability, I think, to get forward. I've been quite critical of these players, but I'm not really going to dig them out other than Strand-Larsen, who I thought was and has been a disgrace all season. I thought the rest of them put the effort in, did put the application in, but it's the same issue for us. We just haven't got that level of quality that we need to compete in this division. And it's okay being solid for 45 minutes, but I think where you really earn your money as a manager is what you can do when things really aren't going your way. And at half-time, Chelsea rejigged, just made a few little changes and took the game away from us very quickly in the second half. And I didn't go into the game expecting us to get anything other than beaten. I think where my disappointment is, again, it's avoidable goals. It's goals that didn't need to happen. I mean, when you look at the first one, Malo Gusto has never scored a goal for Chelsea, and he finds himself absolutely free, 5 yards out, and Totti's totally lost him. I mean, it's just a ridiculous goal to give away, and you can't underestimate how important those moments are, because as soon as that ball hits the net, the whole dynamic as the game has changed. If we could have held on, if we could have stretched the game out a little bit, maybe you get to 70, 75 minutes and you're in a better position. You may even grow into the game because they're going to overcommit. But the second that ball hits the net, for me, that's it, game over. And it was avoidable, which is really disappointing.
Yeah, the same defensive frailties, Jackie, that we've seen pretty much throughout the season. I mean, Wolves are missing the version of Agbadou. I know he's suspended, but missing that version of Agbadou that pretty much saved Wolves defensively by himself. But and I'm not going to be overly critical because the guys come in for the second time to try and help them out. But I just don't think we learnt enough from yesterday. Granted, I'm pleased that Mane came on and he was a bright spark, but giving the whole game to Strand Larsen, giving most of the game to Hwang, I just didn't understand that. Granted, he's only there for a game, and you know what? Fair play to stepping up, but I just didn't get persisting with the same old problems that just aren't improving Wolverhampton Wanderers.
I think Hwang is the real head scratcher. Oh, just as Nocky scratches his head.
We rehearsed that for hours. We rehearsed that for hours.
I was going to say, we didn't actually rehearse that, but we're in tune. We're in sync with the issues of Wolverhampton Wanderers, literally. And I think for quite a long time, I've been thinking, well, he's a talented footballer. We saw in that half-season spell. Do you remember that half-season purple patch that he had? We hadn't seen it before, and we haven't seen it since. And he seems to be a really sensitive soul. He seems to let the pressure really get to him. And I'm sorry, but whilst there's always human empathy for the way anybody reacts to negativity or what have you, at this level, there is a sense that you have to be mentally super strong to be able to cope with negative spells, with downsides, with supporters maybe howling abuse at you, unpleasant though it is. You have to be able to deal with that and somehow get through it. And he hasn't, and he's been picked so frequently. And it is really puzzling for so many reasons. And the fact that he stayed on the field for so long as well. And I was just thinking, why? Because he epitomizes, and it's not all his fault, by the way, at all. I'm not saying that. And he's got qualities, but he epitomizes the problems that Wolves have got going forward. Like when you have an opportunity to thread a through ball through. And apart from that one a couple of weeks ago for Tolu Orkudari, that fabulous interception.
He fed a lovely little ball through to Tolu.
He did.
Great pass.
Fabulous ball. So that's the plus side, but we don't see enough of that. And the fact that he stayed on so long when there were options on the bench really was surprising. And I think it just became more and more deflating as the game wore on. It seemed really obvious around the hour mark that Chelsea were really starting to get a stranglehold on the game. And they were making changes. And you know, we're all kind of uneasily shuffling, going, okay, where are the Wolves changes? Because don't forget, when you defend that solidly, that stoutly, and with so much mental focus and concentration for so long, you're going to get tired, aren't you? So therefore, you need something else higher up the field.
You need an outball, don't you? You need someone to take the pressure off you.
You need an outlet. You need the belief that you're going to score, because you can't keep a clean sheet potentially for that long. And I think mentally it's really draining for players when they know there's nothing in front. And then when they bring on that wonder kid, Estevao, for goodness sake, amongst all the other players they've got, and you see Delap going off, and you see Estevao coming on, you think these poor lads who've worked so hard to try and keep that clean sheet. And they're 3-0 down so quickly. And you could just see heads drop, because they're like, we don't have anything like that. And that is partly down to the recruitment issues in the summer. Haven't got the best out of Arias yet, for whatever reason. Be great to see him linking up more off Strand Larsen, because Strand Larsen's lack of, whether it's fair to say work rate, that's what it looked like to the naked eye. He didn't seem to be putting himself
out. Belief, strength. He's been bullied the last 4 games, maybe 5 games, Nocky, hasn't he? And it's so painful to see whether is he still mentally affected by not getting the move? Is that Achilles still playing there? Whatever it is, Jackie, yet Strand Larsen shouldn't be in the team at the moment.
That's the thing. You get the feeling that, look, we've given him this massive bumper contract. We've got to get a tune out of him. And you can only get a tune out of him by playing him. You would imagine that's the mentality, because you want the old Strand Larsen to come back. And you're not going to see that if he's on the bench. But how long does that last for? And Tolu, who's got a couple of really good quality goals, hasn't he?
Good finishes.
And he puts himself about. He really, really does. But Strand Larsen, the last few games, ever since he's come back from his injury, from his disappointment, whatever you'd like to call it, he just has looked a shadow of the player. And also, he's given defenders such an easy ride. And for goodness sake, in Wolves' situation, you cannot carry a single player for a single minute. Not one player, not for 1 minute. And he's given defenders a really easy ride. So whether when Rob Edwards comes in, whether he looks at that and says, okay, I'm going to persist with Strand Larsen because we know of his quality, but we're going to change the dynamic around him to have players closer to him, to have faster players, to have more dynamic players, and the likes of Arias, he has that. We just haven't seen it enough from him. Maybe he's not playing high enough up the pitch.
Absolutely. One thing, Nocky, and this might sound, it's a bit of a negative spin, but if Rob Edges is watching that game for who he's going to pick, and he sees Strand Larsen playing that, and he sees playing Hwang like that, and we've not used Arias, and we've not used Tolu, surely that dress rehearsal will give the fans what they want, because I'm not sure there's too many fans that want to continue seeing Strand Larsen. And you know what, he might come good, and I hope he does, but something's not right. And as for Hwang, he had that purple patch that was mentioned, but we've not seen that player now for the best part of 2 years. Surely Rob Edwards is going to see that and thinking, well, I can't start those two because nothing is happening.
You'd like to think so, but I'm relatively sure Strand Larsen starts our next game. There's always a little bit of politics.
But why don't, mate? Let me just jump in there. But why? Tolo has scored. He's the little lobbed finish when he's clipped it over the keeper, the touch from Hwang and he's bent it in the far corner. Strand Larsen hasn't even got in those positions. Never mind looking like it. He's got himself in front of goal.
You know my feelings on Strand Larsen, but I will.
Best not to say them before 9.
I will have a charity bet with you for any amount you want. The Strand Larsen starts our next game. It's Palace, isn't it? The next game.
Let's have a £10 charity bet. Then let's do
go
it.
on, then you're on.
Great.
The charity's the Mark Knock Fund, in case you're interested. Where that money's going.
Yeah. I'll put the link up later.
I think there's a bit of politics involved because he's had this big money moves, £100,000, £100,000 a week is the rumour that he's on. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but it's a lot of money. So I expect him to play. And we don't play to his strengths because I think we know where his areas of kind of impact are when we can get the ball in wide positions and get the ball into the box. A lot of his goals have come from crosses that he's managed to get on the end of and nip in front. But he doesn't give you that movement that I think we need. He's not a player who holds the ball up. He's not a player who's physical. Tolo will do that for you. I think my issue with the front two, as much as I really like Tolo, and I think there's a player in there, I think he's going to be one of them players that we're going to lose and he's going to come back to haunt us because I do think there's a talented player. They're very, very similar in what they do. So we've got no plan B, whether you bring Tolu on or Larsen. So I'd be starting Tolu because I think he looks more physical, he looks stronger, he looks like he's a handful. He can clearly finish, and I think he was top scorer for his team last season, so he's clearly got an eye for goal about him. I just think that they'll stick with Strand Larsen in the interim, and I think it could be 5 or 6 games until Tolu can force his way into that team, unless Rob Edwards can find a way to get a tune out of him.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does, but imagine when most new managers come in, Jackie, it's a clean slate, regardless, because everybody, us three, the whole footballing world coaches, you'll all see the game slightly differently and you'll have your own opinion. But you would like to think he'd like to shuffle things up. But equally, it's a fresh start and a clean slate because that's how it goes with the new manager. Those ideas gone, fresh ideas. I'll judge people on how they see them.
He will, but Rob Edwards is not like a manager coming in, say, from a Portuguese manager coming from Saudi Arabia, for example, like last time. He's a lot more connected to the club. He knows people at the club. He loves the club and he's very keen to make his mark there. So I think it's very different. He'll know the players already. He'll know so many people who know the players. So yes, of course, he'll judge with fresh eyes, but equally, he'll be pretty well informed as well. And I think that's quite a useful combination. So he's not going to take 5 games to go, oh, okay, I know the names now. I know what their positions are right now. I'm just going to get my feet under the table. I think he'll hit the ground running, and the international break will help, of course. But he is such a good man manager. He really is. And I think the players will really like him. Now, you don't have to like your manager. You have to respect them. But I think they'll really like him because he's that kind of character that he gets players not just motivated, but he gets them wanting to play for themselves and for him. And I think he'll create an environment whereby people will thrive, people will feel they have a voice, people will feel listened to. And I think that's going to be a breath of fresh air for this group of players and probably for the staff as well. Because, you know, Rob's not passing through, you know, he's popping back from Sutton Coldfield every day. He knows the fan base, he knows the people there. And I think he will feel Wolves' plight keenly. I mentioned on TalkSport when I spoke to them a couple of days ago about having done a Q&A with him at the club a few months ago, something that was instigated by him. He wanted to speak to the coaches. He wanted to speak to the analysts because he wanted to share his experience with them to help them. and it was a Q&A, and the staff there asked really good questions, and he was able to share his experience with them. So he's going to bring the players with him. He's going to bring the staff that are at the club with him. And I think that's going to be very, very welcome. And in terms of Strand Larsen, I don't think he's going to pick him just because he cost however much money. He's going to do whatever he feels he has to do to hit the ground running and to try and beat Crystal Palace. And I'm really looking forward to seeing whatever his first starting 11 is. I'm going to try not to judge too much on that. You know, we all have our kind of, I can't believe he's starting him. I can't believe. I'm going to try and hold off. It's not difficult. It's only an hour and 15 minutes from team news to, I'm going to hold off and not go, oh, he's picked him. I'm going to look at it and think, well, he's picked him for a reason, because A, he's done his scouting. B, he's spoken to a lot of people. C, he's spoken to the player himself. And D, he's going to have his own plan as to how to set up this team and what he wants to get out of that game. So I'm really, really optimistic about him coming in.
I hope you've not used up all your Rob Ed material then, because we're going to do
sorry.
on Rob.
Sorry.
just finishing off on the Chelsea game, Nocky. One positive from the game. Matheus Mane looks super talented, and he really did. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that free kick. Like, he went on a run, he slalomed past people. Now, I saw some guy with an elbow lean into his back, and he's clattered him up the centre back, and somehow the free kick's gone the other way. Now, let's just not focus on that. We'll talk about that referee decision in a second. But for me, this was a bright spark. Come on. Yes, he lost out in a few challenges. Yeah, he got clattered by £105 million midfielder from Brighton they paid for. Of course, he's not going to be physically up to that. But for me, this is a guy that looked comfy on the ball. He was happy to take the space. He looked like everything in the forward area at the moment, Nocky, that Wolves don't have.
I think he had that youthful exuberance, didn't he? He's not bogged down by what's going on. He's not heavily involved in the relegation battle side of things. He's just come in and wants to play football. And sometimes you need something like that. You need someone to come in and just freshen it up a little bit. They've been talking about him for quite some time. He's clearly a very, very talented player. He's one we've got to be careful with. I think if we're going to rely on him to come in and suddenly be a wonder kid for us and save our season, it's an unrealistic expectation at this point. But I certainly think he's a player that we should be looking to get him some minutes. And then if we are in the Championship next season, you've blooded him, you've got him used to what's to come, and he should be ready to go. He's clearly a very, very talented lad. And it's nice because we don't seem to produce too many in recent years. So to have someone come through who looks like he's got a little bit about him, who can maybe commit a defender or two. He's happy to drive and run with the ball. I think he'll be a bit physical when he kind of fills out a little bit. And he doesn't look scared either, which is something that's really important. You're going to stand for Bridge and make an appearance in a game like that. It's, it takes some gumption to go and play your own game, and I think he did that quite well. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. That's probably the one highlight you can take from the game.
And I think as well, Jackie, the development of Wolves will see that as very much a win to put one of their players out as a homegrown player there.
Well, they will, and I'm not sure any other fan cares about this. I really, really do. The fact that in 13 previous matches this season, Wolverhampton Wanderers hadn't fielded a single British outfield player. Not one. Not one. Mane came on. He was born in Portugal, by the way, and he still qualifies to play.
That's
for
what
them.
we've got. That makes sense. That makes sense.
And there's a couple of other countries I think he qualifies for. But hey, he's an England youth international under 18s. And I really think that matters. I really do. I know you and I have spoken about this before, Ryan, and you, and I know a lot of other supporters feel that, well, I just want the best 11 players playing. I don't care where they come from. They can come from Timbuktu, they can come from Brazil, whatever. But it doesn't mean that when you sign a £25 million African guy from France, he's necessarily going to be better than a £6 million player from Bournemouth or an £8 million player from Fulham. I just don't buy that at all. And I think the benefits you have, again, this guy comes originally from Portugal, so whether this applies or not is another matter. But when you have British players, you have their brothers, their sisters, their mum, the dad coming along, their mates from school, their mates from wherever, their neighbourhood coming down, and they could put down roots in the local area. Rob Edwards, when he played for Wolves, he was at Sutton Coldfield and he stayed there. He's got his roots in local-ish area. And, you listen to Tomo, happy birthday, Tomo, 58 today, by the way. And you've got John Richards, happy birthday, John Richards, the king, 75 today, born in Warrington.
Still do a job now, to be honest, in this time.
But oh my God, he looks phenomenal. I saw him at the Wolves Foundation dinner. What a guy. What a lovely, lovely guy. What a great, great ambassador for the club as well. And these people really care about the club. You hear Tomo talking on the official podcast. I hang on Tomo's every word. I watched him every week from the South Bank in the 1990s, home and away, by the way. And he was a 7 out of 10 every week. He was the Dennis Irwin of the Championship. And he's still there. He's still, okay, I think he lives in Derby now, but he's still around. And he's a reference point. And I think that to not have any of those players, to have all these guys moving on, moving away, and not necessarily, apart from the likes of Ruben Neves, who was just a freak, a phenomenon, who genuinely loves the club. And wonderful. There's probably a few others who genuinely love the club too. But it's not the same thing as having those guys who have that local connection, who, you know, pop into the local
do you know what it is, well, Jackie? I get it, and it's a really fair point. I just think Wolves have been the victims of the pressure of trying to stay in the Premier League, and English players come at a cost, and we're at a club where we just don't have time to bed players in. If you're a Man City, when you can sort of, like when Foden came through, you can just sort of ease him into the team. We don't, I mean, we haven't got a Foden and we're not Man City, but it's harder for teams like Wolves, for me, to bring players through because you need up and ready players. If not, I mean, we're bottom of the league now, so it doesn't really matter. But my point being, over the last few years, trying to stay in the Premier League, it's hard to sort of bring someone into the team because you're so desperate for points, because you're just trying to hang on for dear life. Yeah,
but I'm not necessarily just talking about from the youth team. I'm talking about from elsewhere in the Premier League. You can get really good value signings from elsewhere in the Premier League for not as much money as you are bringing somebody in from France or wherever else they've come from Brazil. Okay, we're not going to denigrate our Brazil midfielders because they're phenomenal, but they're not going to necessarily hit the ground running when they're still, you know, I heard something about Andre's kids are all back in Brazil and he doesn't see them very often.
I don't know if that's true or not, but that can't be easy. But
if that's right, and we've seen with managers, you saw what happened to Nuno during lockdown when his family was in Portugal. We saw him physically change. Psychologically, he wasn't the same man when he left the club as before lockdown, not having family. So I personally think that can be a real advantage. And I don't mean that in a softy kind of way. I mean that genuinely as an advantage, having other players from the Premier League coming in and hitting the ground running. And then you have a mixture of those players with the likes of Andre and Joao Gomez, who are phenomenal, and Krejci, who I'm a huge admirer of. You know, you have that blend, just like Conor Cody, the job that he did, the leadership that he brought. And he apparently was at the Chelsea game with his kids because they're still Wolves fans.
Fair play. Can't get in the Wrexham squad, but coming up to watch Wolves, fair play.
The cup game. And, you know, that kind of, you know, having that heart for a club. I just think that blend of players is really healthy for a club like Wolves.
Walk Without Noise, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report with your comment there, much appreciated. Now I just want to run over this quickly. This podcast and a few others teamed together. We spoke over the last few weeks and put a statement to the club. I just want to talk about briefly a little bit more without getting into too much discussion, and I'm not expecting you to reading it, but like I say, you can see all the main podcasts there, the Old Gold Club, the Trust, and all the podcasts along. We spoke, we put a letter, and lots of people have said, well, that's not going to do anything. And I understand people thinking that it won't do anything, but you know what? We're trying to do something. So it may not be for you. We're not speaking on behalf of everybody, but we're using our platforms to try and do the good of the club. We didn't get a response from that one. This was the follow-up. Again, Old Gold Plaque, 1877 Trust, Talking Wolves, Wolves Fancast, the Wolves Report, 77 Club, Always Wolves, Punjabi Wolves, and the Wolf Pack all together there. I believe things may have progressed in there. I can't comment on yet because we've not sort of talked about that publicly, but we are trying to make progress, and really all we want is just the best of Wolverhampton Wanderers. And I know it's not for everybody, and we don't speak on behalf of everybody, but we're just trying to do something that we can. Any thoughts on that, Nocky?
No, I think there's a lot of frustration, isn't there? I think all of this, the reason you've needed to write a letter and the other fan groups have written a letter is because we don't have a great line of communication with the club. I mean, Jeff Shee, he's not a man who's very willing to come and speak to us. He doesn't want to get involved. He's very careful when he picks his interviews. So we've lost that level of communication. We used to have a Laurie Dalrymple who was very open and would talk to the supporters. We've kind of moved now where I feel we're more customers than supporters, which I don't think is a great place for a fan base to be. So, I mean, I obviously didn't have any involvement in this, but, you know, credit to you and the rest of the Wolves groups who've decided to do this. And if it gets any kind of reply and if it can make any kind of impact, or maybe even pass over some of our fears and frustrations to the club, then maybe some good will come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're making steps, and I know people want more action than just letters, and I'm sure if things don't get better, then things will progress in that department, but I'll leave that there for now. Any comment on that, Jackie?
Yeah, I think good for you, good for all of you that have got together and collaborated. I think it's easy to be seen as rivals, maybe if you've got different podcasts, what have you. But to have that level of communication, I thought it was a really intelligent, respectful letter that you wrote. There was no abuse in there. There was no evident anger. And obviously fans are feeling angry at the moment, but I thought you were really reserved in the way you wrote that. And it reads to me like an opening gambit, because I think some other clubs would have got so fed up by now, their fan bases, that there'd have been pretty unpleasant scenes. Honestly, I think other clubs would have done that. And I'm wondering whether maybe perhaps apathy is set in, that Wolves fans are kind of really ground down. Those are the ones that can still afford to go. Because every single Wolves fan I speak to feels exactly the same. They love the club as much, but they're just weighted down by what this club is doing to them. And that's not just performances and results. That's that feeling of not being listened to. So I think this is a very good opening letter. And I think that's so respectful that you deserve a reply to that. And if performance, I would expect them to pick up genuinely under Rob Edwards, and I will come on to that. But I think if decisions and behaviour of the chairman continue to frustrate supporters, I think they'll continue to show their frustration in whichever way they can. But I think that was a really reasonable letter. So well done to all of you.
I'd like to take credit for writing the letter, but it wasn't me. I was just part of it. I couldn't do that. But yeah, credit to the person who wrote it. Yeah, so you know who you are. Fantastic letter.
No, I'm joking.
That'll be absolutely clipped in the interview. It's live. This is episode 144 of the Wolves Report. Mark Knott, Jackie Oatley, and myself, Ryan Lester, on the subject of Jeff Shee and the club. Was it yesterday, Jackie? Was it yesterday morning? Was it Sunday?
Yes,
it was Saturday.
It was yesterday. It feels like a long time ago.
There's been so much going on. Jackie had a conversation live on TalkSport. I reached out to TalkSport, and they were very kind to let us partner with this part of the clip. I thought I'd play it now because it sets us off into the next scene, talking about Jeff Shee. This was Jackie talking to TalkSport yesterday morning.
Whoever's manager with the ownership, if Wolves go down, how obviously it's not good to go down, understand that, but how disastrous would it be? Or is Wolves in good shape if that happens?
Well, they are in better shape. They've been steering clear of the FFP issues, or what it's called these days, and they've been okay in terms of their business dealings in the summer. So financially, they're not in a disastrous situation. The big problem at Wolves, we can talk about formations and fullbacks and Brazilian midfielders as much as you like. The big problem at Wolverhampton Wanderers is the chairman, Jeff Shee, and the ownership, Fosun, who really have Wolves as a tiny little drop in their investment ocean. They don't really matter a huge amount to them. How much they're even keeping an eye on Wolves being bottom of the table, how much they even know how drastically the income will be slashed if and when they fall to the Championship is not clear. All Jeff Shee's communications are utterly random, utterly bizarre. He doesn't seem to get the people at the club. There are some fabulous human beings at Wolverhampton Wanderers at all levels of the club, but they're all being led by somebody who treats them with disdain in terms of their views, their thoughts, the direction of travel, the stadium. What happened to the new stadium? Where's the renovation of the stadium? Where's the conversation about what's happening to the temporary stand in the corner where the fans are getting pelted with rain on match days? What is happening at the club? What is the direction of travel? Where do you want to be? Do you care if they're in the Premier League? Do you care if they are relegated? Will you still be in there? What Wolves fans desperately want is for somebody else to come in and to buy Wolves from Fosun. That is what they need. And in the meantime, if anyone can persuade Jeff Shee to really listen to the supporters, to meet with the supporters, to conduct an interview with somebody who will have an open two-way conversation with them, I'd happily sit down with him and ask him all these questions face to face, but he won't talk to the local media. And when he does talk, it's in a very controlled way and doesn't answer any of the questions supporters want the answers to. So that is the big problem. As long as he's at the helm, Wolves are likely to be in some sort of predicament.
Jackie, always nice to talk to you. Lovely to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Jackie.
Big shout out to our friends at TalkSport for allowing us to share that. I was on a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't do that. Nocky, do you want to follow on from Jackie then? Joking. But I mean, what really pleases me, obviously, it caused sort of a lot of positive support from what Jackie said yesterday on social media. I know it was clipped by lots of people, but it's so refreshing now that it's not just the podcasts and a little bit in the local media. Now, national radio stations and national newspapers, Nocky, are now talking about the absolute state of Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Well, it's hard not to, isn't it, when you look at the position we're in. We're in the best league of the world and we're sat on 2 points and potentially the Christmas tree's up before we win a game. So it's an absolute catastrophe what's going on. I think what was really interesting about that was the comment you made, Jackie, around Fosun probably don't really know what's going on and we're such a small part of their overall infrastructure. Because when you think of the football team from our perspective, now I've got my job, which I enjoy. I've got my family, which mean the absolute world to me, and then everything else is football. So it's such a huge part of my world. And when you see the ownership group probably don't really know the mess we're in at the moment, it kind of hammers home how disappointing it is and how much we've tailed off as a club as a result of just not having that interest and not having that investment from the owners. I thought it was an excellent interview. It was honest, and it's kind of highlighted exactly where we are and the mess that we're in at the moment. So credit to you for doing that, Jack.
Well, I didn't know Max was going to ask about that, so it just came off the top of my head. But I was thinking the other day, I was at the Wolves Foundation dinner, and again, I cannot emphasize enough how brilliant the Wolves Foundation is. And just being there that night and just listening to the stories of the winners on the stage, and it's brilliantly hosted as well. And I just looked around that room and I just looked at the people that work for the club. I'm like, there are so many good people at this club. And I was a family friend of Rachel Hayhoe Flint way back in the day because my dad used to play golf at the same golf club at South Staffs as her. And so we used to see her on the training ground. My brother used to go to school with her son, Ben. So I've known her forever. And I just thought, what would she make of this now? What would she make of the footballing side? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we could probably take that, but the other
teams
stuff,
can get relegated. Teams can not win games forever. You know, Wolverhampton Wanderers supporters don't demand Premier League football. They don't feel they have a divine right to Premier League football, as some club supporters do. Wolves are not like that. Wolves are so important. We're a one-club city, and if you support Wolves, for a lot of us who grew up around the area, I was born in the New Cross Hospital, grew up in Codsall. That was probably all I thought about when I was doing my GCSEs and my A-levels. That's all I could think about was Wolverhampton Wanderers. And then, yes, I moved away and what have you, and had to give up my season ticket when I changed career. But that's all Wolves fans think about. So the idea that Wolves is such a small part of Fosun, and because of the lack of communication, we don't know how significant Wolves are to them. We can only go on what we see. And what we're seeing is a chairman who sits in the director's box and never, ever, ever conducts an open interview. Could you imagine Jeff Shee going on BBC WM? Hi, Daz. Yeah, just wanted to catch up with you and tell you what's going on at the club.
I mean, if you spoke like that, it'd be fantastic. It'd be a real surprise.
All right, Daz, lad. Oh, I'm your bub. And Mike Taylor sitting down one-on-one with him. And I said on that clip, I would absolutely happily sit down with him. And I mean that in a fair journalistic way. I don't mean it as a fan. I don't mean it like that. I've interviewed UEFA presidents, FIFA presidents, Wenger, Mourinho regularly for BBC and TalkSport over the years. And what I mean by that is I've always asked fair questions. I've always been reasonable, but I've always asked the questions that the people watching on the television or listening on the radio would like to know the answers to. And then I'll listen to the answer, and then I'll ask another question based on what that person's just said. And I've never heard an interview like that that's really genuinely open. And so what I say to that is, why not? If you've got nothing to hide, if you're confident in what you're doing, if you believe you're doing a good job, or if you know that things are going wrong, as they're clearly going really wrong, and these people are showing up every week, that fan base at Chelsea last night, my God, my eardrums were sore. They were so vocal. They were so loud throughout. It's an incredible fan base. They are owed a conversation and some answers from the chairman of the club. Nobody else. There's no Laurie Dalrymple anymore to buy people a pint and you can go, Laurie, what's going on, by the way? There is nobody like that. So if you've got nothing to hide, talk to the supporters and explain to them what the plan is for the club. Yes, you hope they don't go down, but if they do, what are you going to do with the club? How are you going to react? What have you planned? Have you got a contingency plan financially? You would think they would have, but we don't hear anything. It's radio silence, and that is not okay for this fan base.
Yeah, Noki, it's not fair, because I know. I mean, we spent a lot of time on our group chat just talking about Wolves, over you and Tyler and Mark insulting me. We talk about football, and that's fine. But as Jackie says, we've got our families. Wolverhampton Wanderers are a massive part of my life and your life and Jackie's life and Tyler's life and Mark's life. We love our football club. And at the moment, it's like an extended family member being mistreated, and there's nothing we can do about it. You see the club now is piling on like 90 million pounds worth of debt. So you see the chairman coming out with ridiculous decisions. It's relentless. And I've got a couple of updates, but yeah, just your take on the Jeff C situation at Wolves, Knocker.
It's just such a mess. And I think from day one, the club have never done very well at managing expectations. I mean, we were going to be bigger than Man City. We were going to compete with the top teams, and things started getting reined in, and financially we weren't where we wanted to be. And then Jeff seemed to kind of retract into his shell a little bit. When he first came in, he was down the pubs, he was drinking, he was talking to the supporters. Then he kind of went back into his shell. And now for me as a supporter, I feel he's more interested in esports and computer games than he is looking after my football club. And I don't expect this football club to be challenging for Champions League football. I don't even think we've got a divine right to be in the Premier League, as Jackie said. But you spoke earlier, Jackie, about Andy Thompson and players like Steve Bull and being in the stadiums home and away watching us play. And you got the impression that those players scored a couple of goals or played on a Saturday and then they were down the pub and then having a curry afterwards. That's the kind of feeling you have. You had a little bit of a connection with them. We've sort of lost that connection now between ourselves and the players and the management and certainly the chairman and the ownership. And that's driven by the lack of communication, the lack of honesty, I would say, from the club down. I feel like when you're benchmarking against teams who are pushing for Europe, but your budget's similar to teams who are trying to push their way out of the Championship, then you're setting yourself up to fail. It's really disappointing, and it's not. There's always a likelihood we were going to go down. I think we're not a team that's stable enough to stay in this league for the rest of time, but I think there's ways that it could have been approached that gave us a little bit more of a chance. And I don't think this self-sufficient model and the continuously selling the family silver every season was ever going to end in a happy way, because we haven't got the quality to bring in to replace. So it's devastating the way it's happening, and it's only gonna get worse, I think, even with Edwards at the helm.
Ryan, can I just read a tweet that I saw earlier? It wasn't to me, it was just a tweet that came up on my ever so slightly golden black algorithm from Bellegarde Ball Enjoyer, which is @_G1NX_. And he writes, following Wolves home and away the last 11 years and only missing a handful of games has been my identity, my escapism, my one true love, hobby, and only real passion in this life. But this season, seeing everything I've seen, my mental health has taken a real plummet to the point where I find myself driving 3 hours home with tears in my eyes, being miserable and not wanting to socialise with family or friends. Just check in on those around you, because for some people, like myself, football, and unfortunately, more specifically, Wolves, is all that some of us have. Much love, he says.
I'm incredibly sad that he feels like that, but I understand. Like I said to Noki earlier on, I nearly got home at 1 a.m. last night from Chelsea on a rail replacement bus. I got a train, then a bus, and then 2 tubes. I'm an idiot, but I can't help it. I love Wolverhampton Wanderers, and this is what they don't understand. And I think the owners will play on that, prices, stuff, and that. And if you question it or you're not being helpful, you need to be positive. That all those lines, I'm sure, will come out. But yeah, Jackie, if you see that tweet, I want to respond to that. I want to speak to that guy, because that's proper touching, that is, and I hope he's all right, because that's really, really sad. But that's really hit home. Football is an escapism. It's the thing us three have got in common. It's the thing that people watching will have in common. It's so important. And like you said, we'd all be here if it was League Two. I mean, I'm not sure I'm going to get Noki and Jackie early on doing a League Two podcast, but I'll give it my best.
We'll be there. Don't worry, we'll be there.
But again, yeah, fantastic. Please send me that tweet, Jackie. I'd love to respond to that guy. This is episode 144 of the Wolves Report with Jackie Oatley, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. Now, let's just finish talking about Jeff Shee before we go on to a positive note and talk about Rob Edwards, even though Jackie's used all the notes already on Rob Edwards. Now, a little bit of common denominator breaking news. A few people have spoke to me, but a source close to the Wolves Report has alleged that Vitor Pereira was informed of his dismissal via WhatsApp or text. We naturally contacted the club to seek some clarity and give them an option of a right to reply, but they did not respond. So, Jeff, if that's incorrect, I apologise. However, Knocky, if that's true.
That's terrible if it's true, isn't it? Especially after the job he did last year. And I know it ended on a sour note, but when you think about the position we were in when he came in, and that I was at Leicester for that first game when he came in, and we were brilliant, especially for 45 minutes, and then we were controlled, and we became hard to beat, and we had the 6 in a row. He deserves more than that, regardless of how this has ended for him. So to sack someone in any line of work by text or by WhatsApp or not in person, I think that's an absolute disgrace. But again, it touches on where Jeff is. He comes across, and I've never met the guy, so I may be completely wrong, but he comes across as very arrogant and narcissistic. So I think he would have thought that was more than comfortable in his world to end it like that.
Jackie, as I mentioned then, it may not be true, but someone that usually gives me good information has shared. I've gone to the club. I didn't get a response, but let's talk about respect, business etiquette. This is a man that's potentially saved Wolves hundreds of millions of pounds by keeping them in the division. That's not the way you do business at any level, surely.
Well, I mean, if that's right, Ryan, I've no reason to disbelieve you, but equally I always wait till something's been confirmed before really giving an opinion on it. If that's right, wow. I mean, as journalists and as people from the area, we all, know people at Wolves. And yeah, I mean, everything I've heard is kind of along those lines in terms of the way that he does business and speaks to people and treats people. And this is the big concern, is that one person has so much power. And you think, what's the solution? Either, as I said yesterday on TalkSport, the club is bought for however much they want for it, if they're prepared to sell. How much it would go for in the Championship, which looks likely, although it's not guaranteed, but it's looking more likely than ever, I guess. Either they sell. If they do, then hopefully the new owners would break the bank for Paul Barber as a chief executive from Brighton, because he is just incredible. And if Wolves had Paul Barber as a CEO, who is just a great person, who is very, very good at his job, as you can tell, and he's just great with people, I think Wolves fans could probably fantasize about that kind of scenario. But if they don't sell, then the next best thing is to try and get some answers, I don't know whether there would be a CEO type figure put in there, but it seems that Jeff Shee wants to run the ship himself. And it's going to be very difficult to change anything. And that's, I think, the problem. That's why people are so frustrated and kind of running out of energy, because it just doesn't look like anything's going to improve anytime soon. So the only hope really is that somebody like Rob Edwards can come in and really galvanise the team. And then, as we all know, when a team's doing well on the field, when there's something to cheer, like the odd goal, the odd point here and there, something like that, maybe a win sometime between now and the next couple of years would be phenomenal. Then you take your mind away from the boardroom and the chairman and the person that everybody's looking at. You do. And I'm afraid when performances are really poor and they just concede terrible goals and lose every week 3-0, or
sell all your best players and recruit poorly and put
all that, then of course the focus is going to be on the chairman. Yeah, that's just how it is, right?
This is episode 144 of the Wolves Report. Jackie Oatley, Mark Knock, and myself, Ryan Lester. We have currently 3,074 live listeners. We really appreciate that. If you've not watched before, drop us a like, drop us a follow, subscribe. We're on YouTube, X, Facebook, and uploaded to Spotify later on. Your support is very much appreciated. We've not won a game for nearly 7 months, and we've got 3,000 people listening. Imagine if we won a game. However, guys, it doesn't stop there. Also, another trusted source close to the Wolves Report has alleged that straight after the Fulham game, our chairman, Mr. Shee, went to meet former manager Gary O'Neill. Again, this is unconfirmed. If it's not correct, I apologise. Knocker, imagine nipping off after the game to meet your. I mean, I hope this isn't true because I don't mind if people laugh at Jeff Shee, but if things like that are happening to my football club, people are going to be laughing at us. I say it's unbelievable, but it's probably believable.
Yeah, I'm not so bothered about this one because I think one thing we've always spoken about is the lack of a succession plan at Molineux. We don't really know what to do when something does go wrong. And I think most clubs probably sound out a new manager, even though they're probably not supposed to do that. You'd like to think that sort of thing wouldn't happen directly after a defeat, but I'm more worried about the fact he was talking to Gary O'Neill, and I think Gary O'Neill's a lovely bloke and he's going to be a very, very good coach. But to sack a manager who hasn't won for his first 10 games of the season and try and replace him with a manager who didn't win for his first 10 games of the season seems like a bit of a strange move to me. He wouldn't have had the fans on side. You'd have been almost waiting for a defeat and you would have seen a turn straight away. Whereas if you bring in someone a little bit different, like a Rob Edwards, potentially you've got a little bit of leeway. So I'm not surprised he did that. I would expect the club to be sounding out replacements. A little bit surprised it was Jeff going and doing that piece because you'd like to think there was other people who maybe could have done that and it would have stayed a little bit more quiet and in-house. But yeah, he likes to have control of everything, I think.
I mean, I hope they're both quashed because it's absolutely ridiculous because Vitor deserves respect. And on the subject of Gary O'Neill, I mean, what a crazy 24 hours that was, Jackie. The rumours come out. I mean, I don't know whether then people have put two and two together because Jeff, them talks had probably gone well initially. But from what I understand, people inside the club, the players, well, I know for a fact some of the players were not particularly happy about it, but I put a poll on Twitter and from 2,922 votes, 7.6% said yes, and a whopping 92.4% said no to Gary O'Neill. When you've got that kind of pressure from the fan base, and if some of the players are alleged to not be happy, even a chairman like Jeff Shee has got to say, well, I know Gary removed himself at the end, but what kind of a mistake would that have been?
Well, it was just bizarre, wasn't it? And like Nocky said, he's going to be a good manager. I think he'll do really well. So it's nothing against Gary O'Neill personally. It's purely the situation of you're bottom of the table with 2 points from then it was 42, now it's 45. 3 points from 45, going back to last season. You need to galvanise the team and the fan base, at least, whether you go down or not. So the idea of going back to someone you sacked for doing what the bloke you just sacked has also done, just in theory doesn't make any sense. And I think the fans would have reacted really more than vocally. I think there would have been really a real problem. Not because of Gary O'Neill personally, but I think because of just going back to the previous manager. And I think probably Gary could probably do without that in his life, I would imagine. You know, I could see him going somewhere else and doing a really good job, honestly. But the whole point is it didn't work out Wolves in the end, despite doing some really good stuff there. So just the idea of it didn't make sense. Nothing personal. The idea didn't make sense. And I think everybody I spoke to, and also in the game, people in the game were just like, but why would you do that? Like nobody understood the idea. And probably Gary didn't understand. He was like, why would you come back to me? We've already fallen out once. So I think that just adds to the craziness and people call it, I was thinking what's Chinese for laughing stock, because that's what Wolves were, you know, and all the national debates and stuff and Sky and TalkSport, and everyone's like, Jackie, why? Like everyone's kind of laughing at the club. Everyone's laughing at them.
This is the problem. We all like a laugh and a joke and that, and make a fool of yourself. But you're now making a fool of my football club, your football club, Jackie, your football club, Nocky, and everyone who's listening that's a Wolves fan. Now you're making our club a laughing stock, and that's why people are writing to the board and asking for answers. That's why national media are talking about it. That's why people are writing articles. That's why fans who follow this are saying, "I want to protest. You want to do this," and I do not blame them. I am angry. I'll be angry. I am absolutely angry. So, just finishing off on the Gary thing, Jackie. 20 years ago, no real social media. That deal probably would have happened, I reckon.
Yeah, I think he'd have. I don't know how much he's on social media, but he's not daft, is he? I mean, he'll have known the reaction, but he'd have felt it himself. I'm sure he probably would have, because he's so presumably very energized and just ready to get back into another job. You think he's a very detailed manager. He watches so many games. He always has been very, very heavy on the research, and that's great. That will bode really well for his next job. But I think he would have looked at that and thought, God, could I really do with all that? can I really do with all that?
We couldn't have done with it.
You know, he'd walk straight back into Molineux for the next home game against Crystal Palace, and Wolves fans would have just been absolutely livid.
No word of a lie.
The atmosphere would have just been.
Yeah. People could have booed that first game. And I know that's ridiculous, but that boo would have been as much as it him. I know, like Nocky said, he probably will go on to be a good coach, but to come back to a squad that is significantly weaker than the one he couldn't get a tune of, it would have been a career own goal for him and a recruitment disaster class for us. So yeah, absolutely crazy. Right, let's draw a line under Jeff Shee. No pun intended. And let's draw a line under Gary O'Neill. And let's now talk about Wolves' new manager, who looks to be, will he be unveiled tomorrow? It looks very, very likely. But let's talk about the man who is potentially, look at his face, handsome. Even if we've lost, we'll just look at him. That's all I'm going to do anyway. Look at that face, Rob. Rob Edwards, former player, lives in the area. And this is a guy, Jackie, that you mentioned as well. And I'll come to you first, Nocky. Your take on the likelihood, the very, very likelihood of Rob Edwards signing the contract tomorrow and being the new Wolves manager.
Looking at the list of what was potential managers, he's probably the best of that bunch, I would say. I feel like he'll probably make us a little bit more organised, a little bit more difficult to beat. Did a really good job at Luton. He was doing a good job at Borough, though they've bit the skids recent weeks. He's organised. He's got a good shape to the way he plays. He's used to the Championship. He's used to the Premier League. It does feel a sensible move, because I don't think he's going to be in there to keep us up this year, because I don't see that happening. But I think he'll be in a position to help with the rebuild next season. He'll have a little bit of time, and he's coming in a really, almost a bit of a no-lose situation, because the expectation is not for us to stay in a division. So he's almost got a free hit at this for the rest of the season. And hopefully, if he can get a few points, if he can beat Derby's points record and get as close-ish to the teams who do stay up, then maybe he'll be set up nicely for next season. So I'm not against it. The other names the names are in the hat, I was a little bit underwhelmed with, to be completely honest. But I think this could be a smart move, because it does give us a chance to rebuild in the Championship if that's where we end up.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jackie, I mean, I talked about this on 5 Live and TalkSport, and we talked about Rob. For me, for the players that we have, his style, particularly what he did at Luton, he's probably most suited to what we've got now. We've got a couple of big centre forwards in there. You know, we've got some proper dogged midfielders, some big boys in the team. I think his style of football is probably most suited to what we have now, which is bizarre, because Vitor Pereira sort of signed a few of those players, and they don't look anything like, well, I don't know what Vitor Pereira was trying to do in the end, but this for me looks a squad that is suited to the way Rob Edwards sets teams up. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but I think they'll look more balanced under his take.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you want from a manager is to make a team greater than the sum of its parts. And I think even though Wolves have downgraded Aït-Nouri, of course, Cunha, Semedo, we know that, I still don't think this team is as good as the sum of its parts. I think it can be reorganised. I think it can be galvanised. I think it can be tightened up at the back. I think he'll probably, I would assume, stop the chopping and changing of systems and of different right wing backs every week and different central defensive partnerships every week, playing Krejci in midfield and playing him in defence. I would imagine he's going to really work on getting a solid back line, whatever it is. Traditionally, he's a 4 at the back kind of man, but he can go 5 at the back. He proved that at Luton. And he is a sort of adaptable manager that will get the best out of the players he's got. He's not like a Ruben Amorim who went to Man United and everyone's like, what? He can't play with this group of players. They're totally not suited to his system. And you brought him in mid-season and not given a pre-season to have a transfer window to fix all that. He's not like that. He will look at this squad and go, right, how can I set this team up to be as productive as it possibly can, given what we have available? And I think he'll be exciting. I think he's an attacking manager. He will organise the defence, but I think we'll see a lot more from Strand Larsen. If we don't, then we'll see more of Tolu while Strand Larsen sorts himself out, whatever his psychological issues are, whatever's going on since that loss of a deal to Newcastle that he seemed to be completely mentally committed to. And I think he'll work out how to how to get this side scoring goals and at least connecting better in the final third and runners off the ball and all the things we didn't see yesterday, which were just shocking, that the shortage of shots and not a single one on target. And, you know, it was really pathetic. And so therefore I'm really excited to see what he can bring. And I really think, I certainly hope, but I really think the fan base will mobilise in his favour, because I come back to that Q&A I did with him, how much he genuinely cares about the club. Of course, that's not the be all and end all. You want to see a team heading in the right direction and pulling together and what have you. But I do think the fact that he wants to go to the club, he's not going to see Wolves as a stepping stone. He is going to be able to wake up in his own bed, go to the training ground and see people that he knows already, try and get a tune out of these players, try and get them really significantly performing better than they have. And he'll know, won't he, that he's massively up against it. Wolves fans aren't expecting him to necessarily keep them up. But Wolves have to be competitive. And the lack of competitive matches where they're kind of thrown in the towel because they're just like, this is not happening for us, it's been horrendous for the supporters to have to put up with. And I think he's going to really change that. If he can make them competitive, he can make Wolves fans actually look forward to going to a game, even without necessarily expecting results, because the squad's not what it should be. But if he can get a few points, get to January, get some attacking players in, plug the gaps that are really there, sort out the right wing-back situation, and really get the team playing more in the final third, then at least the fans can enjoy the rest of the season, be competitive in every game. And if they do go down, which is likely, at least he's there ahead of time planning for a squad in the Championship.
Yeah, great stuff. The one thing I would say about Rob, and this is just not really a swipe at Vitor, because I respect what he did, even though I think he got the summer recruitment and his tactics badly wrong. To come out after you've just been sacked and say, oh, I think I made a mistake coming to Wolves, that sort of little backtracking, yeah, you lost a little bit of respect there, Vitor. Rob Edwards is giving a job up for a team that's probably going to be in the playoffs, that could be in the top two, that stand probably a 1 in 6 chance, maybe more than that, to be in the Premier League next year. It's more likely that Middlesbrough will be in the Premier League next year than Wolves will. So that tells me, Nocky, how bad does this guy want to be here? Now, granted, connections, family roots, played with the club, lives local to the area. I don't think anything in terms of his coaching staff have been confirmed or anything like that. I don't think we're that far down the process. But to actually have somebody that wants to come and work locally, that wants to manage our football club, you know what? It is a risk. It's a risk for him. And I said on the Monday Night Club, I said, you've got to be pretty desperate to come and take the Wolves job right now. And I'll hold my hands up. I said that. But if this guy's desperate to be close to his family and he's desperate to manage his own team, I think, you know what, I know it's a little twist from me there, Nocky, but if this guy wants to be here that badly and he's prepared to give up a promotion to try and save a club that he played for, that the fans respected, you know what, good luck to you, Rob. You're proper laying it out for us and taking a massive gamble. So big respect. Come on, Rob Edwards.
Yeah, it's a club that's steeped in history, isn't it? It's a club that you're lucky if you get to be a part of this football club. And I don't think this is a case of he was desperate to get out of Middlesbrough. I think he was quite happy at Middlesbrough, but family's really important. And if he's having to travel up on a daily, weekly basis, however he was doing it, and being away from his family, that's a massive pull to come back. And Wolves are a bigger club than Middlesbrough, and I mean that with all the respect in the world. Wolves are a bigger club, and it's an opportunity for him to have a few months to settle in and to understand the club and maybe put the spin on things a bit. If he can end the season on a positive and make us look a little bit better, more organised, harder to beat, more offensively powerful, then it sets him up nicely, doesn't it? So I understand his decision to come, and I think it would have been around his relationship with the club and the fact that he's been here before and he's got an affinity with the club. But I think the biggest pull for him is the fact that he can be so close to his family and he hasn't got to lose that time with his wife and his kids, and he can spend more time at home. I think that's massive. But from our perspective as a club, when you've got a manager that wants to be there, just puts everyone at ease a little bit. You don't feel like they're looking to jump ship as soon as they possibly can. You feel like he's going to invest in the players, and he looks like the kind of player who'd want to really invest in the staff as well, right down to the people who are making the food and washing the kits and everybody else. He feels like that kind of person who wants an absolutely united football team. And I do think the fans will be on side with him. We're not an unrealistic bunch of football supporters, and I think that we'll know the situation we're in, and I think he'll get absolutely tremendous backing from the Wolves fans. And if he can get us that first win before Christmas, then maybe the headwinds will turn. Well, yeah, there isn't.
No need for that.
Maybe the headwinds. Maybe it'll turn a little bit, and we can start picking up a few points and start investing and believing in what he's doing. And then if we can use the window to perhaps bring in a couple of his players and people he thinks can improve us, and maybe even planning for next season if that's necessary, then, you know, we can start that process and maybe we have a little head start on next year.
No, we've got a couple of Middlesbrough fans watching, but if Rob Edwards was to bring a certain centre midfielder in January, I wouldn't be against that. So sorry, just a couple of Borough fans that had actually been quite complimentary about Rob Edwards. One last thing on Rob Edwards, Jackie, before we go on to a couple of questions, because I mean, the show's absolutely flown by again. What I would say is it does look like there's a little bit of succession planning, because Rob Edwards previously, a footballing miracle at Luton, getting them up, did fantastic to get them promoted. He's got Middlesbrough sort of near, I think they're second now. I think they won yesterday. But I think they were third before that. So again, he's got another championship team in shape near the top end. So if Wolves do go down, they have an almost proven championship manager. The only bit is how much damage will be done between now and then. Now, hopefully, Wolves make a fist of it, because I'm expecting them to go down. But if the fans are patient and they can buy into what you're seeing, there is a solid championship manager that has had success previously.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff Shee's been taking a lot of stick recently, and, you know, I've possibly given him my fair share, but I think credit for going for a manager who will make a really good fist of trying to keep this side up. There's no way he's coming in going, well, I'm just planning for next season. No way. He's got some quality players in there, and he wants to start winning games, and he's got an opportunity to at least put the pride back. I saw Andy, I think it was, who just messaged saying he's right behind him. He wants Rob to bring the pride back. I think, honestly, that's it. So also, if he brings the pride back and they do pick up a few results and it's not quite enough, okay, well, that's not his fault. And then it's a case of planning early for next season. And so I am feeling so much more optimistic. And also just over the many years of knowing people at the club, and you hear when you talk to people about what various managers have been like over many years, and who's nice to the staff in the canteen and who's really, really not, which infuriates me when you hear about people who don't integrate very well and are not great with the staff and are, you know, just there for a few hours and then they're off to the golf course or whatever, compared to the ones that really give everything. I think Rob will be the latter. I think he'll be loved by the staff. And I think if the staff are feeling positive about going to work, including the players, I think that's a really big positive, regardless of where Wolves are in the table. And I just think the fans, and there were a few bursts of Rob Edwards' Barmy Army in the away end.
Yeah, I did hear that, yeah.
Yeah, in the away end at Chelsea last night. And that bodes really well. I think they need to give him a massively warm reception. Massively warm reception. Because as we all know, where your side is in the table at any given time is one factor in your feeling about your club. But really, there are so many other factors about how you feel, whether you feel connected with the players, whether you feel connected with the manager. And that feeling of when the manager comes over after a game or waves to you during a game, and the songs that you're singing about him and about the players, that is how you're feeling about your club. And then you can inspire the players, obviously, on the field, if you as a fan base are feeling inspired and you have that connection. And I think if the Wolves fans give him a massive welcome and don't turn after 10 minutes if things go wrong, obviously, and stick with him, and then I think it can be a real platform for him to really hit the ground running and really try and turn this ship around in the short term and in the long term.
Absolutely. Rob, if you do get the job, fantastic. He was my manager in a charity game at Molineux, and I scored a hat-trick. Now, if you can make a donkey like me score a hat-trick, you know what? You can turn around Wolverhampton wonders. So, yeah, Rob Edwards, if he gets the job, which I'm sure he will do now, good luck to you, Rob. Hope you can put a smile back on our faces and give this podcast a win to talk about. That would be nice. We're almost at the end of episode 144. I'm going to get you two on to a couple of questions, and then we'll be on our way. Let's have a little look here. My dog's having a coughing fit. Will Fos and She ever communicate with us? The club is a mess, but they just remain silent. Rob, I think we just sort of covered that earlier on, so we'll move on to the next one.
All I'll add with that is that criticism of clubs' communications, I don't think should be directed at the communication department. I don't think anybody is doing that. But
that's really clear. That's not, because the Wolves media team and the stuff they put out, they're the front of house digitally, and they're going to cop the brunt of how fans are feeling. When actually it's not them, it's the person at the very top. So yeah, I don't think there's any issue with the media and comms team there, because they do a great job. I think I mean, they've done some fantastic stuff over the years. So no, this is all about the people running the club, not the people behind there. So yeah,
they've got some really good people there who know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Here's Borley with this week's stinker knocker. Is it too early to do a Wolves 11 for the Championship next season? Come on, Borley. It's not even. I mean, the fireworks have only just gone up. Let's have a look see if we can get some proper questions in before we go. Here we go. Really important question. A lot of people have messaged about this. Can a protest be arranged through these channels? We have 2 weeks to prepare for the Palace game. We need to get something arranged so we can carry it out effectively. Now, Dan, this is a point that so many people have made. And I think if people didn't get what they want in terms of comms, I think this would be the last resort. From the group I'm part of, we have taken the steps with letters to try and get communications because ultimately, I think it's pretty much everyone's lost faith in Jeff Shee, and that's a massive concern. We want to know about the club going forward, basically what the 2 letters are put in. So do I think there could be a safe, polite protest at the very end of this? I absolutely do think there could. Is 2 weeks enough time to organise it, that kind of thing with the planning? I'm not sure it is. I'm not saying it's not possible, but let's just watch this space because so many people are talking about it. But it's one thing saying it. People have got to organise it. You've got to get planning. You've got to speak to the police. You've got to speak to the club. There's such a huge amount of things. Would I be against it at this point? I don't think I would. I would support a safe, organised process. Absolutely, I would. But let's just take one step at a time. Any comment on that, Nocky?
Yeah, I think let's let Rob Edwards settle in first. I don't think it's great if his first game is and there's a protest banging on outside or people aren't in the ground because they want to protest. I'm all for it because I think we're a bit of a mess at the moment, but let's let Rob settle in, have an opportunity to try and turn the ship round. And then if we are going to protest either before or after a game, let's not do it during the game. Let's not do anything daft because we want to, we want everybody to be on side together and to start trying to work together to swing this around a little bit. So yeah, it probably will happen because I don't anticipate there's going to be a huge change in what we do, but let's give the manager a chance would be my kind of thought process on it.
Yeah, good take on that. Dan, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. Steve Lee's asked, what should be done in January? Would it be reckless to saddle the club with more debt if we're cut adrift? I think this is a fantastic question, Jackie. Now, I don't know if I've talked about this on one of the group chats, but my concern would be, let's say Wolves are 15, 20 points adrift in January. I don't see there's any way back then. You could say then you could throw another 100 million at it, but then you're going down the Championship with 100 million pounds worth of debt and the 90 million pound loan. So you're taking 190 million pounds of debt and players on huge wages into the Championship. I think there has to be a real sensible decision there, Jackie. I think we have to be within. I'm talking like 2 wins of it. I'm saying if for 3 wins away, there's no way. If you win with a couple of wins, which we aren't even now, then I think we should spend. Any more than that, I just think it's a huge gamble for the future of this football club.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if they gambled the future of the club, literally gambled away the potential Premier League revenue of next season. I just can't see that happening. I'd be shocked if they did that. I think, as you say, it depends how close they are to the safety line as to the type of player they get in. But obviously, you can get loan players. I think ideally loan players with Premier League experience would be the obvious thing. And then it's obviously till the end of the season. And if you can get a bit of quality, maybe that kid off the Chelsea bench last night, he doesn't start all the time, does he?
Oh,
Esteban. Wow. No, it wouldn't be that quality of player. But yeah, I mean, they're going to be sensible and Rob's going to be sensible and he's going to work out the type of player he wants. Also, mentality-wise, what sort of player do you want? I think it depends where they are in the table. If they're gone and cut adrift, then I think it'll be a case of a good opportunity for Championship planning. Genuinely, I think it would be a sensible idea because I think they're going to have to recruit a lot more British players if they're going to be in the Championship, players who've played in England before, at least. And so I know they're kind of full to the brim of foreign players at the moment, aren't they? And it'd be a case of having to bring in under 21s, I believe. But yeah, I think they'll do the sensible thing. But I think attacking players, 1 or 2 attacking players who can I
think even 3 attacking players.
Join the dots between the midfield.
Yeah, someone that can carry a football, someone that has got the imagination for a 1-2, someone that can hit a shot, someone that can create something for themselves or someone else. We have nobody that can do that. Just on the basis of that question, Nocky, looking at the other side of things, a bigger concern for me in January, unless they're thinking business, what little crown jewels we have left, is there a potential that some of our best players end up going in January now?
It could happen. I mean, if someone came in with 60 million for Strand Larsen, I certainly wouldn't hesitate.
Oh,
but I think you could have people knocking on the door for Gomez and Andre, and then you've got to weigh up do you take the money for them now? Would you potentially lose 15, 20 million in value if we get relegated? So it could happen. I'm not sure it will because of the impact that it will cause and the noise it will cause amongst the fan base. And you're almost waving a white flag if you do that. So you'd like to think they try to add a few players, whether they are players that we think can make us competitive next season, then fine. But there is always the chance that someone's going to try their luck and come and knocking on the door. And if the price is right, Wolves will probably sell.
Yeah, that is a concern. But equally, Jackie, if Wolves are cut adrift and they're pretty much no way back, and they're like, well, we could clear that £90 million debt this window. It's brutal business. I mean, it'd be sickening for the fans, but do you think people would understand that, or do you want to fight till the bitter end?
No, I don't think you're better off getting rid of your best players mid-season. Just what that would mean for everybody. I just can't see the benefit of that. They're not going to lose that much value at the end of the season. It'd be a bidding war, if you like. It would be a real shame to lose Joao Gomez and Andre. Just watching them last night, and also how much they cared, by the way. You've seen them coming over to the away. They stopped, didn't they, at a certain point? Andre kind of wanted to go a bit closer, but he was a bit scared of the reaction. But he had nothing to worry about at all because the fans.
Well, I think those two, obviously playing against £200 million worth of centre midfielders in Enzo and Caicedo, over £200 million. Those guys were bought for a combination of less than 40 million. So,
and they're worth more now. They're worth more because they've really developed since then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I think they've been so phenomenal, and also just seeing their reaction and the difference being there live compared to watching on TV and seeing the reactions long after the final whistle. Of course, these things can be performative, but I don't think they were. And the devastation, Joao Gomez and Andre in particular, Krejci as well, like they looked like they were really, really feeling it. And the idea of going, we'll just offload them in January and just get the money in, I just can't see that helping anybody.
But let's not forget who's running the football side of things at our football club. Anything could happen. Steve, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. 2 quick-fire questions, then we'll just talk about Palace really, really quickly. Now, I mentioned on Monday Night Club in terms of this is the worst I've felt about Wolverhampton Wanderers. Is this the most embarrassed you've been being a Wolves fan? I'm never embarrassed to be a Wolves fan. I love my badge. I love my football club. But what I would say in a twist to that question is, my opinion is, the person running the football club is now embarrassing our football club. So I'm not embarrassed to be a Wolves fan. I'd follow them anywhere. I absolutely love the badge. My mate's doing this show and people are wide. We're on here because we love Wolverhampton Wanderers. So no, I'm embarrassed by how our club is being operated. I'm not embarrassed about being a Wolves fan. Okay.
No, absolutely. I'll never be embarrassed to follow the club. I think they're making some embarrassing decisions, and I think there's some embarrassing people. But absolutely, no, I'll never be embarrassed. And if we break Derby's record, then we'll wear it like a crown and whack it all in our bios because it is what it is. So no, I've never been embarrassed to follow your football club. If you're embarrassed to follow your club, then you shouldn't be following them.
Jackie?
And the chants last night, both in the stadium and there was a kid I was walking out near on the way out. He was like, "You're nothing special. We lose every week." Like the good thing about Wolves fans, Black Country sense of humour. We'll always find the humour in it. It's kind of a way of life, and it's not all results related. Yes, everyone's feeling devastated the way the club's being run at the moment, the way you don't know what direction they're heading in, all the rest of it. But I think I was just thinking back to embarrassing moments. I think being 5-0 down at home to Barnsley in 1991 was pretty embarrassing.
That was the greatest own goal ever, wasn't it? Was it Stancliffe?
Stancliffe.
Oh my
Stancliffe.
word!
I was right behind.
He's facing his own goal, and it's like, how's he finished that? It was.
I think I might have been welling up a bit, which is a bit embarrassing. And then I started laughing, and it was all fine. And then. Yeah, I think the most embarrassed I think I've ever been was in the 2001-2002 season. I was going home and away every week just before I changed career, went back to retrain as a journalist, and losing that lead at the promotional league. Do you remember?
That was.
I can barely talk about it now. When
Sheffield Wednesday, we took about 5,000-6,000, didn't we? That was a tough one. Anyway, let's draw the line.
That was more embarrassing.
Yeah, Nocky, let's end on a high note. Keith WWFC, by the way, Jay, thanks for your question, although it's a sticky one. WWFC says, how will you celebrate if Wolves ever win a game of football again? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to agree with everything Tyler says for a day.
Don't do that. You don't do that to yourself. How will I celebrate? I've forgotten how to celebrate a win, to be completely honest. I might treat myself to a curry, couple of drinks,
Get in there.
And I'll actually watch Match of the Day, which I haven't seen for the last 6 months. So, yeah, I quite look forward to it.
I had a full head of black hair last time Wolves won a Premier League game. Jackie, how are you going to celebrate when Wolves win a game next?
I don't know, because I can't remember what it's like. Do you know what? I'll go on Facebook, and there's a Wolves fan I know from Codsall called Matt Bristow. And whenever Wolves win a league game, he gets his Wolves mug out, and he says the 3 points mug. Now, remember, it was 6 in a row, wasn't it, up until the end of April? Incredible. And I remember commentating on that game against Leicester, and every time I opened up Facebook, there was Matt Bristow with his 3 points mug. Haven't seen it for all this time ever since. So I'll probably go on Facebook and message Matt and then celebrate. I might have to get the pink fizz out because I love a bit of pink fizz. And the Wolves mugs sitting in the cupboard near the AFC Wimbledon ones.
Mine are all dusty now. They've lots need help. They've had no sunlight or anything at all.
Keith, I struggle with them. I struggle getting the mugs out at the moment, but I'm still trying to fend off the AFC Wimbledon ones.
It's hard. Keith, thank you for being part of the latest Wolves report. Currently have 4,039 live views. That is very much appreciated. If you've not watched before, or you have and you fancy you're doing it now, drop us a like, subscribe, YouTube, X. And we're on Spotify as well as Facebook. So yeah, thank you very much. We are almost at the end of the show. We have no idea what the team will be for Palace, so let's just have a bit of fun. Jackie's positivity, Nocky, let's give us your positivity against a Palace side that always beat Wolves. Nocky, your prediction for Wolverhampton Wanderers v Crystal Palace, a 3 o'clock kickoff on a Saturday afternoon at Molineux in 2 weeks' time.
They tend to beat us even when we're playing well, don't they?
That's the spirit.
I'd love to be positive, but they're such a good team. I think they're an example of what a really good manager can do as well, because they've got
some good players, haven't they?
And they play so well. They're so difficult to play against. They've got so much power in midfield. Mateta up front has turned into one of the best strikers in the league, and I don't know how they've managed to make that change in him.
Adam Wharton,
defensively, they're solid as well. Wharton, they've got England internationals. It's just, I'd love to.
You're not really making me feel like I'm enjoying the 2 weeks off.
I'd love to think we can get something, and I think it'll be a better atmosphere. I just think they'll be too good for us on the day, and we can't expect Rob Edwards to turn this ship round overnight as well. So I think we will
win that first game.
Well, hopefully we do. I think we lose the game 3-1, and I hope I'm wrong.
Crikey. Jackie, it's over to you for some positivity. Even if you don't believe it, Jackie, I need you to tell a wicked lie about how we're going to beat Crystal Palace. 2-1.
2-1. I'm going to try not to look too much at Munoz, their right back, and see how he only cost £8 million from Belgium, despite being a Colombia international with experience of major international tournament finals and things like that. I'm going to try not to look at that, and that's really hard. But fabulous manager. Love Wharton. He's got to be in the England squad for the World Cup, please. But Wolves going to win 2-1. Wolves fans are going to make it an absolute cauldron of noise in support of Rob Edwards. The guy wants to be there, and he's going to get the best out of the players the Wolves have got. Genuinely, I believe that, honestly. And I think he needs the fans' backing. And the fans have got so much pent-up frustration and aggression, but also so much passion. And I think if they can turn that towards a load of noise, a hell of a lot of noise. And even if Palace score early on, just keep going. I was there for that 6-0 home defeat against Southampton. I was reporting for 5 Live and trying to tell John Murray that Wolves actually weren't that bad as the fourth. And I was going, the fans are on their feet as Leon Best scores the 4th goal. They're all singing Super Mick McCarthy. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, honestly, these fans have got it in them in the dark days. They find the humour and they've got the passion, and just channel all that aggression in support of Rob Edwards now for the rest of the season. Forget about the table. Just take it game by game. Just enjoy, or try to enjoy, each game, and then pick it apart afterwards. But if Rob Edwards can just get them competitive in every single game, then the table will take care of itself.
That was never a 6-0, by the way. Marek Saganovsky turned into Pele for the afternoon that day. He was brilliant.
I mean, do you know what, though? He was just nice. And we talk about that. I see that as a fond day now, because all the South Bank stats, when I was season tickets in the South Bank, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, but I'm enjoying myself. But anyway, and just to make me feel better about having to pay Nocky that £10, I'm going to go Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0 and Jurgen Strand to be the first scorer. This has been episode 144 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much, Jackie, for coming on. Thank you to Nock. It's much appreciated. Just a quick note for Jeff Shee. It's just a business transaction for you, but for us, it's a lifetime investment of the Wolves.